CNBC.com. Today, 1 Eastern. Sponsored by Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade at CME Group.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin denying any involvement or meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Take a listen to what he told our Jeff Cutmore earlier this morning.
We perceive and regard the United States as a great power with which we want to establish a good partnership relations. All other things are fictional, illusory, and provocations, lies. All these are used for domestic American political agendas.
For more now, we're joined by former NATO Secretary General Fogh Rasmussen. Sir, what is your take on what you heard from Mr. Putin? I assume it's more of the same to a certain extent. Anything kind of new there, or any expectations on your part as what it means for the evolving relationship between Russia and the United States?
First of all, I didn't hear anything new. Of course, he will denounce any allegation of Russian interference with the elections in the U.S., but I have no doubt that the Russians try to impact on the democratic processes, not only in the U.S. but also in Europe. And next election will be in France, and I have no doubt we will see Russian interference in the French elections as well.
You believe that the Russians will continue to try to insert themselves in the democratic process in France. Why do you believe that to be the case?
Because there is a lot of at stake. Recently, one of the leading candidates, Marine Le Pen, visited Mr. Putin in the Kremlin. She promised to work for a lifting of the Western sanctions against Russia. And we have seen negative stories spread about her most probable contender, namely Macron. And I have no doubt that the Russians are behind those negative stories about the leading candidate, Macron, as well.
President Trump has met with Angela Merkel, of course, from Germany, yet to meet with Putin. At the same time, there are continued reviews just really beginning in both House Intelligence and Senate Intelligence panel about any potential relationship between the Trump administration and Russian hacking. What is your sense here in terms of where the relationship stands and whether or not what many believe would be a rapprochement between these two countries actually still will be the case?
Well, I think recent developments in Washington have made it more difficult for the American administration to reset the relations with Russia. That would be much too controversial. My guess would be that Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin will not meet until after the NATO summit on the 25th of May. I also think it would be of utmost importance that President Trump and President Poroshenko Ukraine meet before President Trump meets President Putin. So all in all, I think we will not see major changes in the relationship between the United States and Russia in the short term.
And specific to the United States' continued commitment to NATO, given the president's previous comments about that relationship and his desire, of course, to see all the participants in the alliance pay their fair share, is NATO still under pressure?
Well, of course, candidate Trump's statements during the campaign trail were a matter of concern because he raised doubts about American commitment to defending all allies. But after the elections, I think he has slightly changed his approach, and in particular, the security team that is surrounding him, Secretary of Defense Mattis, Secretary of State Tillerson, and others, they have made very clear reassuring statements about an unchanged American commitment. So I don't think NATO is under pressure. On the contrary, I think a message from the 25th of May NATO summit could be the American commitment is unchanged and the European allies will invest much more in defense in the coming years. And that would be a very positive signal also to the Russians.
Mr. Rasmussen, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anders Rasmussen, former NATO Secretary General. Let's get back to this market in the brief time we have.